Oda Nobunaga, born on the 23rd of June 1534 in Nagoya of Owari Province, was destined to emerge as a pivotal figure in the unification of Japan. He was the legitimate heir to Oda Nobuhide, a distinguished leader of the formidable Oda clan and deputy shugo, or military governor. He left his mark on the pages of history as one of Japan's most influential figures, and the deeds of his life shaped the country and culture that we now know today. Hello everyone and welcome. If it's your first time here, it's good to meet you, and if you're coming back, it's great to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, I've opened a Patreon, where all videos can be enjoyed uninterrupted. Apart from that, like, comment and subscribe if you feel inclined to. Now, without further ado, let's get on with today's video, The Life of Oda Nobunaga. Get yourself comfortable. The question of Nobunaga's birthplace has been a subject of historical debate. While traditionally believed to have been born in Nagoya Castle, recent scholarship suggests Shibota Castle as a more likely location. Known in his youth as Kiposhi, Nobunaga's early life was marked by eccentric behavior. He was quite a jokester, and this set him apart from his more serious peers. Gifted Nagoya Castle by his father at the tender age of 8 years old, Nobunaga made the castle his home for 13 years, until the strategic acquisition of Ieyasu Castle at his age of 21. Although he had one or perhaps two older half-brothers, Nobunaga, being the first legitimate son, was destined to be the successor of the Oda leadership. This distinction led to his separation from his mother and the provision of specialized education overseen by 4 chief retainers: Hayashi Hidesata, Hirate Masahide, Aoyama Nobumasa, and Naito Shosuke. Upon reaching adulthood in 1546, Nobunaga adopted the name Oda Saburo Nobunaga and embarked on his maiden military campaign against Kira and Ohama in Mikawa in 1547. His father, Nobuhide, seeking to consolidate power and ensure peace with neighboring territories, arranged a politically motivated marriage between Nobunaga and Nohime, the daughter of Saito Do-san, the lord of Mino province. This alliance, forged around 1548, not only neutralized hostilities with Mino, but also brought Nobunaga into closer involvement with the governance and political maneuverings of the era, setting the stage for his eventual rise as one of the most influential warlords in Japanese history. The untimely demise of Oda Nobuhide in 1551 catalyzed a tumultuous period for his legitimate heir Nobunaga, who was met with fierce resistance from within the Oda clan itself. Nobunaga's response to his father's funeral rites, the throwing of ceremonial incense at the altar, was seen as an affront, exacerbated tensions, and precipitating a succession crisis. Rallying approximately 1,000 men, Nobunaga quelled dissent within his ranks, but not without external threats. Imagawa Yoshimoto, seizing the moment of vulnerability, launched a siege on Anjo Castle, targeting Nobunaga's half-brother, Nobuhiro. A strategic hostage exchange involving the young Matsudaira Takachio, the future Tokugawa Ieyasu, not only averted disaster, but also sowed the seeds for future alliances. And if you've not listened to my lecture on Tokugawa Ieyasu yet, you can go and find that in the Japanese history playlist. The following year, amidst the ongoing strife, Nobunaga faced defections and territorial challenges, notably repelling an attack by senior retainer Yamaguchi Noritsugu and his son, only to lose control over eastern Owari to the Imagawa. The internal discord continued with Nobunaga's uncle, Oda Nobutomo, and the official governor of Owari, Shiba Yoshimune, who both launched attacks against him. Through resilience and strategic acumen, Nobunaga countered these assaults, further consolidating his leadership and extending his influence over Owari province. The years that followed this were marred by betrayal and more internal conflict, leading to his mentor, Hirotate Masahide, to tragically take his own life. Yet, Nobunaga demonstrated remarkable military skill, defeating the Imagawa at the Battle of Meraki Castle and capturing Kiyosu Castle from his uncle Nobutomo. The death of his father-in-law, Saito Dosan, at the hands of his own son, Saito Yoshitatsu, and the loss of support from the Saito clan underscored the relentless challenges that Nobunaga was facing. Despite these many adversities, Nobunaga's determination never waned. His ability to forgive, exemplified by his reconciliation with his brother Nobuyuki, showcased a blend of ruthlessness and magnanimity. However, the cycle of conspiracy and betrayal only persisted, culminating in the forced execution of Nobuyuki after a second plot against Nobunaga was uncovered. This decisive action underscored Nobunaga's resolve to cement his authority. By 1559, after defending allies and crushing rebellions, Nobunaga had vanquished all internal opposition within the Oda clan, firmly establishing his dominion over Owari province. This period of consolidation laid the groundwork for Nobunaga's eventual campaign to unify Japan, marking the beginning of a transformative era under his leadership. In 1560, Imagawa Yoshimoto, emboldened by his ambitions and a formidable force of 25,000 men, embarked on a campaign that would bring him into direct conflict with Nobunaga. Yoshimoto aimed to advance into Owari province, territory under control of Nobunaga's family, under the guise of supporting the ailing Ashikaga shogunate. The campaign saw the swift capture of key border fortresses, including Washizu, and the successful siege of Marune Fortress by Matsudaira Motoyasu's forces, who were aligned with Imagawa. Faced with this formidable invasion, Nobunaga could muster a significantly smaller force, estimated between 2,000 and 3,000 men. Advisors urged Nobunaga to seek refuge and prepare for a prolonged siege. However, Nobunaga, demonstrating his characteristic resolve and strategic audacity, opted for an aggressive counter-offensive instead. He saw in Yoshimoto's complacency an opportunity for a decisive strike. The Battle of Okehazama, occurring on June 1560, marked the turning point in this confrontation. Utilizing the intelligence of his scouts, Nobunaga learned of Yoshimoto's position in the narrow gorge of Dengaku-kazama, an ideal location for an ambush. The Imagawa army, buoyed by their recent victories and unsuspecting of imminent attack, was caught completely off guard. Nobunaga, having maneuvered his forces with stealth, launched a surprise attack during a thunderstorm, culminating in Yoshimoto's death at the hands of the Oda samurai. This victory was a testament to Nobunaga's military genius, and marked a significant shift in his fortunes, garnering him prestige and allegiance from numerous samurai and warlords. Kinoshita Tokichiro, who would later emerge as Toyotomi Hideyoshi, is believed to have participated in this critical battle, although specific records of his involvement during this time are scarce. His notable achievements would later be documented during the Mino campaign. There will be a full video on Toyotomi Hideyoshi, by the way, if it's not already up there. It's on the list. The aftermath of Okazama had profound implications for regional dynamics. The Imagawa clan, significantly weakened, lost its grip on the Matsudaira clan. This change in power dynamics paved the way for an alliance in 1561 between Nobunaga and Matsudaira Motoyasu, who would later be known as Tokugawa Ieyasu. This alliance marked a significant reconciliation between two historically antagonistic clans. Additionally, Nobunaga sought to strengthen his position through diplomatic ties, notably by allying with Takeda Shingen via the marriage of his daughter to Shingen's son. These alliances were strategic moves by Nobunaga to consolidate power and further his ambition of unifying Japan under his rule. In the following year, 1561, the death of Saito Yoshitatsu, the brother-in-law of Oda Nobunaga, created another opportunity for Nobunaga to expand his influence. Yoshitatsu, who had secured his position through fratricide, was succeeded by his son, Saito Tatsuoki, Nobunaga's nephew. Tatsuoki, however, lacked the leadership and military acumen of his predecessors. This presented Nobunaga with a strategic advantage. Seizing the moment, he initiated a campaign in Mino province, targeting Tatsuoki. Through decisive victories at the battles of Moribe and Jushijo, and by undermining Tatsuoki's support among his retainers, Nobunaga significantly weakened the Saito clan. In a move to further solidify his position, Nobunaga dispatched his retainer, Kinoshita Tokichiro, later known as Toyotomi Hideyoshi, to secure alliances within Mino. By 1566, Nobunaga tasked Kinoshita with constructing Tsunomata Castle, a bold and strategic move that facilitated the final conquest of Mino. The capitulation of the Mino triumvirate to Nobunaga's forces underscored the collapse of Saito resistance, culminating in the siege of Inabayama Castle. Nobunaga's subsequent renaming of the castle and town to Gifu, inspired by the legendary Mount Qi in China, symbolized his grand ambition to unify Japan. This period also marked the adoption of the personal seal Tenka Fubu, epitomizing Nobunaga's martial approach to governance. Following the conquest of Mino, Nobunaga expanded his campaign to Ise province, targeting the Kitabatake clan, and to Omi province, seeking an alliance with the strategically positioned Azai clan through marriage. The alliance aimed to secure a peaceful route to Kyoto, the heart of Japan's political power. The quest to install Ashikaga Yoshiaki as shogun, thereby avenging Yoshiaki's brother and asserting control over Kyoto, led Nobunaga to confront the Rokaku clan in Omi. Nobunaga's swift and decisive victories against the Rokaku and subsequent entry into Kyoto in 1568 marked a significant milestone. Upon installing Yoshiaki as the 15th shogun, Nobunaga chose not to accept any official title, maintaining autonomy while demonstrating reverence for Emperor Ogimachi. After securing Ashikaga Yoshiaki's position as the shogun, Nobunaga leveraged this relationship to solidify his power among the local daimyo. That's a feudal lord, by the way. He urged Yoshiaki to summon them to Kyoto for a banquet, a move that would later demonstrate their allegiance. However, Asakura Yoshikage, serving as Yoshiaki's regent and head of the Asakura clan, declined the invitation, a decision Nobunaga branded as treasonous. Seizing upon this refusal as a pretext, Nobunaga mobilized his forces against the Asakura domain in Echizen, marking the onset of a campaign that would further strain his ties with the shogun. The situation escalated when Yoshiaki, disenchanted with Nobunaga's dominance, began to foster an anti-Nobunaga coalition among various daimyos. The situation reached a critical juncture in 1570 with Nobunaga's siege of Kanagasaki Castle. The campaign against the Asakura was complicated by the intervention of Azai Nagamasa, who was both Nobunaga's brother-in-law and a member of the long-standing Azai-Asakura alliance. This familial and political entanglement led Nobunaga to renounce his ties with the Oda clan, further bolstering the opposition. The combined might of the Azai, Asakura, and their allies presented a formidable challenge to Nobunaga, who, facing potential defeat, strategically withdrew from Kanagasaki. The subsequent Battle of Anegawa in July of 1570 saw Nobunaga and his ally Tokugawa Ieyasu confront the Azai Asakura forces. The confrontation unfolded on the banks of the Anegawa River, culminating in a fierce melee. The Oda and Tokugawa forces, though, through strategic maneuvers and timely intervention of the Mino Triumvirate, ultimately secured a decisive victory against the combined Azai Asakura army. By 1573, Nobunaga's military campaigns had significantly weakened the Azai and Asakura clans, leading to an army drawn from the provinces of Owari, Mino, and Ise. Nobunaga initiated a series of sieges that targeted key fortifications of both clans, including Hikida Castle, Ichijodani Castle, and Odani Castle. These concentrated efforts culminated in the obliteration of the Azai and Asakura domains, with their leaders resorting to taking their own lives in the face of inevitable defeat. This series of victories not only eliminated two of Nobunaga's most persistent adversaries, but also demonstrated his formidable prowess and resolve in his quest for unification under his rule. In 1572, a significant challenge to Nobunaga's ascendancy materialized as Ashikaga Yoshiaki marshaled a coalition against him, drawing support from Azai Nagamasa and Matsunaga Hisahide, and elements of the Miyoshi clan. This alliance, leveraging the cumulative military might of its constituents, initiated a siege that saw early successes against Nobunaga's forces, cornering them with strategic precision. However, the unexpected death of Takeda Shingen from illness abruptly halted the siege's momentum, sparing Nobunaga from a potentially decisive defeat. In the tumultuous year of 1573, tensions in Kyoto received a boiling point as Yoshiaki sought to undermine Nobunaga's influence within the city. Aligning themselves with the Matsunaga clan, Yoshiaki's forces staged revolts from Makishima Castle, endeavoring to insert their dominance. Nobunaga's response was swift and severe. His counteroffensive not only quelled the uprisings, but it also led to significant destruction within Kyoto. This forced Yoshiaki into retreat. Parallel to these politics, Nobunaga confronted the formidable Iko-Iki movement. The sect, rooted in the Jodo Shinshu branch of Buddhism, had evolved from a self-defense collective into a substantial armed force, emblematic of broader societal discontent with samurai dominance. In the August of 1570, Nobunaga initiated the Ishiyama Honganji War against this group, embarking on a campaign that would see him combat both the Iko-Iki and his traditional samurai adversaries. Despite initial setbacks, including a failed siege of Nagashima in the May of 1571 that resulted in heavy losses and injury to his general Shibata Katsuie, Nobunaga's resolve remained unshaken. His determination to subdue the Iko-Iki led to notorious siege of Mount Hiei in the September of 1571. Viewing the Enryakuji temple and its warrior monks as a direct threat, Nobunaga launched a preemptive strike against the Tendai school's stronghold on Mount Hiei. The assault was merciless, with Nobunaga's forces annihilating the temple complex, culminating in widespread devastation and loss of life. pure misery. This act of brutality just underscored Nobunaga's now ruthless approach to consolidating power and eliminating opposition one way or the other. Following the destruction of Mount Hiei, Nobunaga faced the Iko-Iki once more at Nagashima in July of 1573. Despite being equipped with a large contingent of arquebusiers, that's people with firearms by the way, a sudden rainstorm disabled the guns, giving the Iko-Iki, who were able to fire from sheltered positions, a significant advantage. This, right here, almost cost Nobunaga his life, and resulted in a retreat, marking one of his most substantial defeats. Can't help the weather, I'm afraid. Undeterred, Nobunaga orchestrated a third siege in 1574, deploying Kuki Yoshitaka to implement a naval blockade and bombardment strategy. This approach led to the capture of key outlying forts, and eventually allowed Nobunaga to envelop and incinerate the Nagashima complex, effectively annihilating the Iko-Iki defenders therein. Now, that wasn't the only enemy he had, of course. The Mori clan, another faction in the anti-Nobunaga coalition, posed a significant challenge during this period. Under the leadership of the youthful Terremoto, successor to Mori Motonari, the clan directly confronted Nobunaga. Their involvement became particularly pronounced during the Ishiyama-Honganji War, where Nobunaga's siege efforts against the Iko-Iki stronghold in present-day Osaka were complicated by Mori's naval interventions. These actions facilitated the flow of supplies to the besieged fortress, prolonging the conflict significantly. In response, Nobunaga launched a comprehensive campaign aimed at isolating and overcoming the Mori's strategic maneuvers. He dispatched Tokugawa Ieyasu to subdue the Iko-Iki in Ki province and Hashiba Hideyoshi to seize control of the Chugoku region from the Mori, while Kuki Yoshitaka led efforts from the sea. These concerted efforts eventually succeeded in cutting off the Mori's supply lines to Ishiyama-Honganji. After a decade-long siege that began in 1570, the fortress of Ishiyama-Honganji finally capitulated in the year 1580. The surrender, prompted by the exhaustion of supplies and an imperial request, led to the sparing of the defenders' lives by Nobunaga, though they were expelled and the fortress was razed. This victory over Ishiyama-Honganji marked a critical blow to the Iko-Iki, significantly diminishing their capacity as a formidable military force and further consolidating Nobunaga's power. Takeda Shingen, once an ally within the complex web of Japanese feudal alliances, became one of the most formidable opponents against Nobunaga as part of the anti-Nobunaga coalition. In a significant shift in 1572, Shingen dispatched Akiyama Nobutomo to seize Iwamura Castle. Compounding the betrayal, Nobunaga's aunt, Lady Otsuya, not only surrendered the castle, but also married Nobutomo. Excuse me for laughing. That is a betrayal, marking a severe deterioration in the Takeda-Oda relationship and setting the stage for open warfare. Talk about salt in the wound. Shingen's ambitions extended towards Kyoto, spurred on by Ashikaga Yoshiaki, launching an invasion into Tokugawa territory. Shingen posed a direct challenge to Nobunaga, who was concurrently preoccupied on the Western Front. Despite the limited support provided to Tokugawa Ieyasu, the latter managed to fend off complete defeat at the Battle of Mikatagahara through a series of strategic deceptions, showcasing an early instance of the cunning that would later characterize Tokugawa's later successes. No, Shingen wasn't around for too long. The death of Shingen in April 1573 momentarily halted the momentum of the Takeda forces. However, his son, Katsuyori, persisted with aggressive campaigns against the Tokugawa, notably besieging Nagashino Castle in 1575. The siege triggered Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu to combine forces, and culminated in the decisive Battle of Nagashino. Here, the Takeda clan suffered catastrophic losses, challenging conventional narratives of the battle that highlighted the effectiveness of Nobunaga's three-stage shooting strategy with the arquebusiers. Modern scholarship has pointed to logistical superiority rather than tactical innovation as a key determinant in Nobunaga's victory. The downfall of the Takeda clan was finalized in 1582, with the joint forces of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu capturing Shinano and Kai provinces. Katsuyori's defeat at the Battle of Tenmokuzan, followed by his taking of his own life, marked the end of Takeda influence and underscored the ruthlessness and efficiency of Nobunaga's campaign to consolidate his power in Japan. This series of events not only exemplified the volatile nature of the Sengoku period of warfare, but also highlighted the strategic depth and adaptability of Nobunaga and his allies. Following May 1573, Nobunaga's influence and strategic position in Kyoto began to radically shift. He focused on Ashikaga Yoshiaki, who had declared hostility towards Nobunaga on multiple occasions. Nobunaga's military skill soon overcame Yoshiaki's forces, effectively ending the power of the Ashikaga shogunate on the 27th of August, 1573, as Yoshiaki was exiled from Kyoto and decided to become a Buddhist monk and live out his days. Nobunaga's entry into Kyoto not only symbolized a shift in power dynamics, but also heralded a resurgence in the authority of the imperial court under Emperor Okimachi. Nobunaga's support for the emperor was evident, and his loyalty was rewarded with rapid promotions within the imperial court, including significant titles that bolstered his status and influence further. The conflict with the Uesugi clan was another significant chapter in Nobunaga's campaign to consolidate his power. the Uesugi's intervention in Noto province, and the subsequent battle at Tedorigawa in November 1577 showcased the intense rivalry between Nobunaga and Uesugi Kenshin. Despite Nobunaga's defeat and the contemplation of ceding northern provinces to Kenshin, the sudden death of Kenshin in 1578 all but halted the Uesugi advance and ended the immediate threat to Nobunaga's dominance. Talk about a lucky break, huh? Nobunaga's strategic acumen was also reflected in his construction of Azuchi Castle on Mount Azuchi near Lake Biwa. Completed between 1576 and 1579, the castle served not just as a formidable fortress, but also as a symbol of Nobunaga's power and a tactical vantage point to oversee and defend against potential threats from major rival clans. By 1580, Nobunaga had emerged as the most powerful warlord in Japan, controlling a vast expanse of the central regions. His successful campaigns and the establishment of control over 20 provinces underscored his unmatched military and political influence during this period. The Tensho-Iga War further exemplified Nobunaga's resolve to quell resistance and secure his territory. Despite an initial setback in 1579, Nobunaga's forces, under his son, Oda Nobunaga, eventually subdued the Iga province in 1581, demonstrating the Oda clan's capability to overcome determined local resistance and solidify control over strategic regions. This campaign, like many of Nobunaga's endeavors, marked a significant step towards the unification of the country as a whole under his leadership. By the year 1582, Oda Nobunaga had ascended to the zenith of his power, firmly establishing himself as the paramount warlord of Japan and de facto ruler of the nation. His military campaigns and strategic alliances had systematically dismantled the opposition, piece by piece, culminating in the decisive Battle of Tenmokuzan. This battle marked the end of the Takeda clan, a formidable rival, with Takeda Katsuyori and his wife tragically ending their lives in the aftermath of the defeat, a poignant symbol of the Takeda's final downfall. As Nobunaga poised himself for further territorial expansions into Echigo province and Shikoku, his influence and control over Japan seemed practically unstoppable. During this period of consolidation and preparation for new conquests, Hashiba Hideyoshi, once Nobunaga's loyal sandal-bearer and now a distinguished general in his own right, laid siege to Takamatsu Castle in Bichu province. This stronghold was crucial to the Mori clan, and its capture would critically undermine Mori's defensive posture. The siege drew reinforcements from Mori Terimoto, intensifying the conflict and compelling Hideyoshi to seek additional support from Nobunaga. In response to Hideyoshi's request, Nobunaga mobilized his leading generals, including Akechi Matsuhide, to assemble their forces for a concerted effort to support the siege. Nobunaga himself planned to lead this significant military expedition, demonstrating his commitment to the campaign and the unity of his leadership. Leaving Azuchi Castle, Nobunaga traveled to Honnoji, a temple in Kyoto that he frequented for tea ceremonies and as a place of rest during his visits to the city. Accompanied by a relatively small revenue of 30 pages, in stark contrast to his son Nobutada, who brought with him 2,000 men on horseback, Nobunaga's presence in Kyoto was part of a broader strategic plan. However, things didn't quite go so peacefully, and the tea ceremony was rather unceremoniously interrupted. The dramatic turn of events in June 1582 marked a critical juncture in Japanese history. Remember Akechi Mitsuhide? Well, he ended up assassinating Nobunaga. Under mysterious circumstances, by the way. It's still the subject of a lot of speculation and intrigue. Mitsuhide, ostensibly acting on Nobunaga's orders, led his troops towards Kyoto. However, upon reaching the Katsura River, he made the fateful decision to turn against Nobunaga, attacking him during a vulnerable moment at the Honnoji Temple. The true motive behind Mitsuhide's betrayal, well, we're still trying to figure that one out, with theories ranging from personal vendettas all the way to political ambitions. On that fateful morning, before dawn, Mitsuhide's forces swiftly surrounded Honnoji, capturing Nobunaga and his small retinue by surprise. Now, despite a reportedly valiant resistance, Nobunaga was quickly overwhelmed. Facing inevitable defeat, he chose to commit seppuku, a decision that underscored the samurai code of honor by which he lived and ultimately died by. But it wasn't all good news for Mitsuhide. His attempts to consolidate power in the aftermath of the coup were met with immediate challenges. His inability to present Nobunaga's body left many to simply doubt the veracity of his claims, undermining his attempt to justify his rebellion and secure broader support. The news of Nobunaga's demise quickly reached Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Nobunaga's most trusted retainer, who was then engaged in the siege of Takamatsu Castle. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Hideyoshi negotiated a swift conclusion to the siege and marched his forces back to Kyoto, executing a strategic maneuver known as Chugoku Ogoeshi. Hideyoshi's rapid response and decisive victory at the Battle of Yamazaki not only avenged Nobunaga, but also marked the beginning of his own ascendancy. As for Matsuhide, well, his reign was very short-lived. Just days after usurping Nobunaga, he was defeated, bringing his brief period of power to a rather violent and chaotic end. Hideyoshi's subsequent consolidation of power and continuation of Nobunaga's legacy of unification underscored a pivotal shift in the Sengoku period, steering Japan towards a period of relative peace, at least compared to before, and stability under the Toyotomi and later Tokugawa shogunates. Well, that's it for our biography of Oda Nobunaga. Did you learn something? I know I did. Man, imagine finding out your auntie just married your enemy and you lost your castle. Now that is a bad day. In the tumultuous era of Japan's Sengoku period, few figures stand out as dramatically as Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a man whose remarkable rise from peasant origins to the pinnacle of power captures the essence of possibility and peril. His meteoric ascent, fueled by a combination of cunning, bravery, and acute political acumen, forever altered the landscape of Japan and laid the groundwork for national unity. Yet Hideyoshi's reign is a multifaceted saga of triumph and contradictions, showcasing the intricate interplay between military prowess and the subtleties of government that define Japanese history. Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, it's great to meet you. And if you're coming back, as always, it's a pleasure to have you with me again. If you'd like to support the channel, why don't you go check out the Patreon? Or, if you'd just like to enjoy the videos, just leave it with a like, comment and subscribe, if you are so inclined to do so. Well, without further ado, let's get on to today's topic, the life of Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Before the year 1570, the early life of Hideyoshi remains shrouded in mystery, with only sparse documents and letters from that period shedding light on his existence at all. His own writings, which started from 1577, offer very few details about his life before this time. Traditionally, it's believed that Hideyoshi was born on the 16th of February 1537, according to the Japanese lunar calendar, which translates to the 17th of March 1537 on the Julian calendar. His place of birth was Nakamura in the Owari province, now part of modern-day Nakamura Ward in Nagoya. During the tumultuous Sengoku period, that's the country at war, the warring states era, very dangerous. This era was characterized by relentless warfare and the downfall of the Ashikaga shogunate. Hideyoshi emerged from humble beginnings, lacking any noble samurai heritage. His father, Kinoshita Yaemon, was an ashigaru, that was essentially a foot soldier serving the samurai class, but without any real prestige. Without a family name and known in his youth as Hiyoshimaru, or Bounty of the Sun, Hideyoshi faced the early loss of his father Yaemon in 1543, when he was merely a lad of 7 years old. Numerous tales swirl around Hideyoshi's younger years, including his venture to a temple for his own education. However, he reportedly soon found the monastic life unsuitable and left in pursuit of greater adventures. Adopting the name Kinoshita Tokichiro, he initially found service within the Imagawa clan, becoming an attendant to a local leader, Matsushita Yukitsuna. His journey took him to the domain of Imagawa Yoshimoto, a daimyo in Suruga province. Hideyoshi's time there was marked by his eventual desertion, absconding with funds that Matsushita Yukitsuna had entrusted to him. I'm sure he regretted that. In the year of 1558, Hideyoshi embarked on a pivotal chapter of his life, joining the ranks of the Oda clan as an ashigaru, or foot soldier. The Oda, ruling over Hideyoshi's native Owari province, were under the command of the ambitious Oda Nobunaga. Oh, and by the way, my 3 videos on Nobunaga, Ieyasu, and Hideyoshi kind of tie in together. Hideyoshi quickly distinguished himself, ascending to the role of Nobunaga's sandal-bearer. It doesn't sound like much, but the sandal-bearer was a person of considerable status, nothing to be scoffed at. His biographers recount how Hideyoshi took charge of Kiyosu Castle's renovations, a narrative often debated for its authenticity, though, and oversaw the clan's kitchen operations. Apparently he was quite skilled behind the stove. His adeptness did not go unnoticed by Nobunaga, by the way, who, after his victory over Imagawa Yoshimoto at the Battle of Okahazama in 1560, recognized Hideyoshi as a trusted advisor. The year 1561 marked Hideyoshi's marriage to One, the adopted progeny of Asano Nagakatsu, a descendant of the illustrious Minamoto no Yorimitsu. Alongside his half-brother Hashiba Koichiro and allies Hachisuka Makatatsu and Maeno Nagayasu, Hideyoshi undertook the fortification of Tsunemata Castle, strategically positioned in hostile territory. Legend celebrates Hideyoshi for erecting a fortification at Tsunemata overnight and unveiling a concealed path to Mount Inaba, leading to the capitulation of the local defenders. Hideyoshi's talent as a negotiator came to the forefront in 1564, particularly in his dealings with Mino warlords. Employing diplomacy and generous monetary incentives, he persuaded many to abandon their allegiance to the Saito clan, securing the loyalty of key figures like the strategist Takenaka Shigeharu for Nobunaga's cause. His efforts were instrumental in Nobunaga's unchallenged conquest of the Inabayama Castle in 1567. Now, despite all of his modest origins, in 1568, Hideyoshi had risen to become one of Nobunaga's most esteemed generals, adopting the name Hashiba Hideyoshi, a name derived from the characters of Oda's closest confidants. Hideyoshi's military acumen was further demonstrated in 1570, during the retreat from Azai Asakura forces at Kanagasaki, where he orchestrated a masterful rearguard action. This feat was followed by his leadership at the Battle of Anagawa, marking his debut in commanding Oda troops in open conflict. By 1573, following successful campaigns against the Azai and Asakura, Nobunaga named Hideyoshi daimyo of 3 districts in northern Omi province. Initially stationed at Udani Castle, Hideyoshi later relocated to Kunitomo, renaming it Nakahama in Nobunaga's honor. His tenure in Inahama on Lake Biwa saw the enhancement of the Kunimoto firearms factory, significantly boosting its production. Firearms, by the way, were generally new thing at this time in Japan. Not all of the warlords had them, but the ones that did were very glad to have them. The Portuguese had given the Japanese firearms perhaps some 40, 50 years before. For them it was generally a new idea as well. Moving on. Hideyoshi's military career continued to flourish with his capture of Itami Castle in 1574. Participation in the Battle of Nagashino against the Takeda clan in 1575, and involvement in several significant sieges, including the Siege of Mitsuji, as part of the Ishiyama Honganji War. His contributions were pivotal in Nobunaga's campaign to conquer the Chugoku region from the Mori clan, including battles at Tedorigawa, Miki, Takamatsu, and Dori. During the critical moments of the siege of Takamatsu, a dramatic turn of events unfolded on June the 21st, 1582, when Oda Nobunaga and his eldest son Nobutada fell victim to betrayal. In what is known as now the Honnoji incident, Akechi Mitsuhide's forces launched a treacherous attack, leading to their assassination within the sacred walls of the Honnoji temple in Kyoto. This tragic event abruptly halted Nobunaga's ambitious endeavor to unify Japan under a centralized rule. In the wake of this betrayal, Hideyoshi swiftly shifted his focus from the ongoing siege to seek retribution for his fallen lord. Prioritizing the need for swift justice over prolonged conflict, he brokered a peace with the Mori clan, freeing himself to confront the perpetrator of Nobunaga's demise. Not more than 13 days following the treachery, Hideyoshi faced Mitsuhide in the Battle of Yamazaki. The decisive engagement not only allowed Hideyoshi to exact his revenge for Nobunaga, but also enabled him to seize the reins of power and authority that Nobunaga himself had once wielded. In the wake of the Honnoji incident on June 21st, 1582, which saw the tragic demise of the Odas, the landscape of Japanese power dynamics was irrevocably altered. Hideyoshi, driven by that desire for retribution, swiftly annihilated the betrayers, and it was his time to shine. In a monumental move to cement his power, Hideyoshi initiated the construction of Osaka Castle in 1582, on the grounds of the erstwhile Ishiyama Honganji Temple, previously razed by Nobunaga. Completed in 1597, this formidable fortress would later emerge as the Toyotomi clan's final bastion following Hideyoshi's passing. As 1582 waned, Hideyoshi's influence began to surge. He orchestrated a gathering of the era's most formidable daimyo at Kiyosu Castle to deliberate on the succession of Nobunaga. The assembly saw Oda Nobunaga and Nobutaka, Nobunaga's sons, at loggerheads with each other, compelling Hideyoshi to advocate for Nobunaga's grandson, Samboshi, also known as Hidenobu, as the rightful heir. Although Shibata Katsuie initially endorsed Samboshi, he later shifted his allegiance to Nobutaka, for whom he had conducted the Genpuku ceremony, and aligned with Takigawa Kazumasu against Hideyoshi. Genpuku ceremonies, by the way, are like a coming of age. However, Hideyoshi, with the backing of Oda Nobunaga and the support of other Oda clan leaders, secured both Samboshi and his own standing within the clan. He adeptly distributed Nobunaga's domains among the generals, and formed a council of 4 to assist in governance, laying the groundwork for his authority. The rivalry between Hideyoshi and Shibata Katsuie culminated in the Battle of Shizukatake. Here, Hideyoshi's strategic acumen was on full display as he crushed Katsuie's forces, consolidating his power, neutralizing opposition within the Oda clan, and extending his control over 30 provinces. This battle was notable not just for Hideyoshi's triumph, but also for the valor of Dom Justo Takayama, the esteemed Christian daimyo and samurai who fought valiantly alongside Hideyoshi. In 1584, the stage was set for a significant confrontation in the wake of Nobunaga's death, as Nobukatsu, another one of Nobunaga's sons, continued to express his open hostility towards Hideyoshi. Aligning with Tokugawa Ieyasu, Nobukatsu's alliance set the groundwork for the Battle of Komaki and Nagakute. This clash, however, did not decisively favor either side, and in the end it resulted in a tactical stalemate. While Hideyoshi's forces sustained considerable losses, neither he nor Ieyasu directly engaged in combat with each other. Ieyasu's strategy effectively halted the progress of Hideyoshi's allies, demonstrating the complexities of samurai warfare and alliances. The conflict reached a turning point following the deaths of Ikeda Tsuneoki and Mori Nagayoshi, prompting both Hideyoshi and Ieyasu to withdraw their forces. In the aftermath, Hideyoshi sought reconciliation, extending peace to both Nobukatsu and Ieyasu, thereby dissolving the immediate cause for war between the Tokugawa and Hashiba clans. In a gesture of goodwill, and as a strategic move to secure peace, Hideyoshi sent his young sister, Asahi no Kata, and their mother, Omandokoro, to Ieyasu as hostages. Amidst all of this, Hideyoshi's status and influence continued to rapidly ascend. Now, unlike his predecessor, Oda Nobunaga, Hideyoshi did not attain the shogunate. Instead, he pursued a different path to legitimize and enhance his standing. By being adopted by Konoe Sakihisa, a member of the esteemed Fujiwara clan, Hideyoshi aligned himself with one of the most noble lineages in Japan. This strategic move paved the way for him to acquire a series of high-ranking court titles, culminating in the prestigious appointment as Imperial Regent in 1585. That same year, in a significant ceremonial gesture, the imperial court formally bestowed upon him the clan name Toyotomi, marking his departure from the Fujiwara identity. Hideyoshi's ambitions were not solely martial, nor were they solely political. In 1587, he constructed the luxurious Jurukudai Palace, embodying his wealth, power, and showing off his cultural sophistication. This grand residence also served as a venue for entertaining the highest echelons of society, including Emperor Go-Yozei, whom Hideyoshi hosted in 1588, a year later. These developments not only consolidated Hideyoshi's dominion over the military and political spheres, but also signified his pronounced impact on the cultural landscape of the country, demonstrating his unique blend of martial skill, political acumen, and cultural patronage. Later, in 1585, Hideyoshi targeted the Negoro-ji Temple, a stronghold of warrior monks of Ki province skilled in firearms and allied with both the Iko-Iki and Tokugawa Ieyasu, Hideyoshi's notable adversary. Their support for Tokugawa in the prior conflict at Komaki and Nagakute provoked Hideyoshi's campaign against them. After eliminating other militant outposts in the region, Hideyoshi's forces besieged Negoro-ji, attacking from multiple directions. The monks, many of whom retreated to Ota Castle, faced Hideyoshi's onslaught as the temple was set aflame, with the samurai mercilessly cutting down those who attempted to flee the raging inferno. The campaign in Shikoku in 1585 marked another ambitious military endeavor by Hideyoshi, with an impressive force led by Toyotomi Hidenaga, Toyotomi Hidetsugu, Ukita Hideie, and the Mori clans Takakage and Motoharu. Hideyoshi aimed to conquer Shikoku, the smallest of Japan's 4 main islands. Then under the control of Chokusabe Motochika. Despite the vast numerical superiority of Hideyoshi's army, Motochika resolved to defend his domain. The conflict reached its zenith at the siege of Ichinomiya Castle, which endured for a long and grueling 26 days. Ultimately, Motochika capitulated, retaining control of Tosa province, while Hideyoshi's generals divided the rest of Shikoku among themselves. The Toyama campaign in the late summer of 1585 saw Hideyoshi turning his attention to Echu and Hida provinces. Leading a substantial force, Hideyoshi dispatched Kanamori Nagachika to dismantle the Anegakoji clan of Hida, culminating in the siege of Toyama Castle. The castle, defended by Sasa Narimasa and significantly outnumbered, quickly fell to Hideyoshi, and he once again asserted his dominance over a new region. In the following year, 1586, the Kyushu campaign represented Hideyoshi's effort to bring Kyushu under his control, challenging the Shimazu clan. With Toyotomi Hideyoshi leading a southern assault and Hideyoshi himself advancing from the west, their combined forces, vastly outnumbering the Shimazu, converged in Satsuma. The subsequent surrender of the Shimazu and the siege of Kagoshima Castle marked a significant victory for Hideyoshi, paving the way for his campaign against the Hojo clan in Kanto, the last major clan left to oppose him. Amidst these military achievements, in 1587, Hideyoshi took steps to banish Christian missionaries from Kyushu, aiming to tighten his grip on the region and its daimyo, many of whom were Christian. You see, this is where the Portuguese were getting in. Despite the official stance, Hideyoshi's practical approach to trade with Europeans meant that individual Christians often continued their activities unofficially. Very complex. In a strategic move to solidify his control and quell potential uprisings, Hideyoshi initiated the renowned sword hunt of 1588. This decree prohibited ordinary peasants from possessing weapons, compelling the collection of arms across the realm. The confiscated weapons were repurposed into a symbolic statue of Buddha, reflecting Hideyoshi's intent to impose peace and order by disarming the populace. This act effectively quelled peasant revolts, secured a more stable regime, but at the cost of the individual daimyo's autonomy. Oh, I can see the Americans listening to this shaking their head now. Hello to all American listeners. The Odawara campaign in 1590 marked a significant milestone in Hideyoshi's military endeavors, targeting the Hojo clan's stronghold in the Kanto region. This campaign was notable for its alliance between Hideyoshi and Tokugawa, showcasing a united front against the Hojo. The besieging force, numbering around 200,000, laid siege to Odawara Castle, which was defended by around 82,000 Hojo warriors. This siege, distinguished by its unconventional tactics, including entertainment for the samurai by a host of performers, lasted 3 months, before the Hojo eventually capitulated. This victory dissolved the last vestiges of resistance to Hideyoshi's rule, marking the end of the Sengoku period. In a strategic exchange, Ieyasu traded his 5 provinces for the 8 Hojo-ruled provinces in Kanto, cementing their alliance further. The death of Sen no Rikyu in February of 1591 under Hideyoshi's orders marked a tragic turn in their relationship. Rikyu, a revered master of the tea ceremony and a close confidant to Hideyoshi, had significantly influenced Japanese cultural aesthetics. Despite his subsequent focus on no, that's a kind of Japanese entertainment, Hideyoshi's continued engagement with projects reflecting Rikyu's aesthetics hinted at possible remorse over his drastic decision. The Konohe Rebellion in 1591. an insurrection led by Kunohei Masazane against the Nanbu clan in Mutsu province represented the final conflict in Hideyoshi's campaign to unify Japan. With the support of Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu, the rebellion was quickly crushed, culminating in the siege of Kunohei Castle. The overwhelming might of Hideyoshi's forces led to Mazane's surrender and the execution of the castle's defenders, effectively consolidating Hideyoshi's control and concluding the Sengoku period. The precarious future for the Toyotomi was starkly highlighted by the death of Hideyoshi's only child, Tsurumatsu, in the September of 1591, followed closely by the demise of his half-brother Hidenaga. This series of unfortunate events left Hideyoshi without a direct heir, until he chose to adopt his nephew Hidetsugu, naming him as the successor in January 1592. In a significant shift of power, Hideyoshi then resigned from his position in Kampaku, adopting the venerable title of Taiko, essentially a retired regent, thus enabling Hidetsugu to step into the role of Kampaku. Amidst concerns of his declining health, Hideyoshi remained driven by a desire to achieve a grandiose feat that would truly cement his legacy. Embracing the ambitious dream of his predecessor, Oda Nobunaga, Hideyoshi set his sights on the monumental goal of conquering the Ming dynasty through an invasion of Korea, then known as Koryu or Joseon. By the Ming dynasty, he means China, by the way. And the Ming dynasty, well, that was a big one. So he certainly got some very big goals. Now, this bold objective mirrored Nobunaga's expansive vision and underscored Hideyoshi's aspiration to leave a permanent mark on history. Hideyoshi's interactions with Korea began as early as 1587, some years earlier, with requests for safe passage through Korea into China, reflecting his long-standing ambition. Korea, which was allied with Ming China and wary of potential consequences, steadfastly refused these overtures. The Joseon government's apprehensions were rooted in the fear that granting passage to Japanese forces would inevitably draw massive Ming Chinese military presence onto Korean soil, so as they had a chance to confront Hideyoshi's army, and thereby jeopardizing Korean security. Despite initial rebuffs in April and July of 1591, Hideyoshi remained persistent, ultimately commanding the commencement of preparations for an invasion of Korea in the August of 1591. Setting the stage for a significant military campaign that would further extend his influence and challenge the regional power dynamics of East Asia. In the inaugural campaign against Korea, which commenced in April of 1592, Hideyoshi orchestrated a meticulously planned invasion. He appointed Ukita Hideye as the field marshal, setting the stage for a strategic assault on the Korean peninsula. By June of the same year, Konoshi Yukinaga had led the occupation of Seoul, the capital of the Joseon dynasty, marking a swift and decisive advance. The fall of Seoul prompted Japanese commanders to convene a war council within the city, where they devised the Hachi Dokuniwari strategy, entailing the division of Korea into 8 sectors for targeted conquests. Each sector was assigned to one of the 8 divisions of Hideyoshi's army, spearheading simultaneous assaults across the peninsula. This strategy of dispersion saw notable generals leading their divisions against various provinces as follows. Pyongyang in the north was targeted by Konishi Yukinaga's 1st Division. Hamyong fell under the purview of Kato Kiyomasa. Hwanghae was to be conquered by Kuroda Nagamasa. Gwangwon faced the onslaught of Mori Katsunaga's 4th Division, while Chongcheong was assigned to Fukushima Masanori. Kubikawa Takakage was assigned Jeolla, and Gyeongsang was the objective of Mori Teramoto's 7th Division. The 8th and final division, led by Ukita Hideye, was assigned Gyeonggi, including Seoul. This comprehensive and rapid campaign yielded significant territorial gains within just 4 short months, providing Hideyoshi's forces with a pathway into northern China and dominating much of Korea. However, the Korean king Sunjo of Joseon, in a desperate bid for survival, retreated to Uiju and implored Ming China for military support. In response, the Wan Li Emperor dispatched a formidable army led by General Li Ru-song in 1593, aiming to thwart the Japanese advance into China and reclaim the Korean peninsula. General Li's forces, numbering around 43,000, launched a counter-offensive that recaptured Pyongyang in January 1593, encircling Seoul later on. And yes, that Pyongyang is the Pyongyang you're thinking of, up in the north. Despite their successes, the Japanese commanders, including Takakage and Hideki, managed a victory at the Battle of Byokjaegwan. Nevertheless, the Japanese naval forces faced a devastating defeat at the hands of Admiral Yi Sun-sin, crippling Japan's logistical capabilities and effectively halting the ambitious conquest of China. The campaign's conclusion not only marked a significant setback for Hideyoshi's imperial aspirations, but it also coincided with domestic crises. The birth of Hideyoshi's 2nd son, Hideyori, in 1593, introduced a quandary of succession, prompting the tragic exile and subsequent forced taking of one's own life of Hideyoshi's nephew and designated heir, Hidetsugu, in 1595. Pardon me, there's certain words that YouTube do not like. Anyway, the ensuing purge of Hidetsugu's family underscored the brutal measures Hideyoshi was willing to take to secure his dynasty's continuity. For example, in a stark demonstration of Hideyoshi's increasingly severe stance on Christianity, January 1597 saw the arrest of 26 Christians, comprising European and Japanese adherents, who were then subjected to public crucifixion in Nagasaki. This act of suppression aimed to deter the Japanese populace from converting to Christianity, reflecting Hideyoshi's efforts to consolidate his control over Japan amidst his expansive military campaigns. I have a whole video on the Christian persecutions in Japan, if you want to know more about that. But we'll just briefly gloss over that in this video, as it's quite a deep topic. The prolonged conflict in Korea, marked by intermittent negotiations and miscommunications, led to a stalemate between the opposing forces. Both the Japanese and Ming envoys, each mistakenly believing they had conversed the other into submission, reported false victories to their respective leaders. That's right. One person reported that the other side had surrendered, while the other side reported to their side the same. So they both simply went their separate ways. Well, this breakdown in diplomacy prompted Hideyoshi to commission Tokugawa Ieyasu with the task of spearheading a second invasion of Korea, in hopes of replicating or at least surpassing the initial campaign's achievements. However, this renewed effort failed to gain momentum, at least as much momentum as the first invasion got, with the Japanese forces largely confined to Gyeongsang province. By the June of 1598, the situation on the Korean peninsula had become increasingly dire. Despite successfully repelling multiple Chinese offenses at Suncheon and Sacheon, the Japanese found themselves simply unable to advance any further. The Ming army, gathering its strength, was poised for a final, decisive push. Amidst these challenges, the Battle of Sacheon, led by Shimazu Yoshihiro, stood out as a significant Japanese triumph. Yet the victory was bittersweet, as it came at a time when all involved, China, Japan, and Korea, were grappling with the immense toll of the protracted conflict. Exhausted by the relentless warfare, and aware of the sacrifices his troops had made, Hideyoshi's concern for his soldiers' welfare deepened. His admonition to his commander in Korea, imploring that its soldiers should not be left to perish far from their homeland, reflected a poignant acknowledgement of the war's human cost. This sentiment underscored the diminishing returns of the military campaign and hinted at the shifting priorities in Hideyoshi's strategy, as he grappled with the realities of a war that had extended far beyond its anticipated scope and scale. Either way, even if they did manage to conquer Korea, what would be left to conquer China with? Not very much. Well, unfortunately, those dreams of conquering that great ancient kingdom had to fall by the wayside, as Toyotomi Hideyoshi passed away on September 18th, 1598, at Fushimi Castle. His parting words to his closest daimyo and generals highlighted his reliance on them, expressing a poignant farewell without leaving any final instructions. In an effort to maintain morale, his death was concealed by the Council of Five Elders, who then commanded the Japanese forces in Korea to retreat. Hideyoshi's inability to secure Korea thwarted any further ambitions to invade China. In the aftermath of Hideyoshi's demise, the Council of Five Elders struggled to curtail the ambitions of Tokugawa Ieyasu. High-ranking generals Kato Kiyomasa and Fukushima Masanori, despite their valiant service in war, returned to find Ishida Matsunari wielding power and showing them disdain. This led them to align with Tokugawa Ieyasu. The influence once held by Hideyoshi's young son and heir, Hideyori, had diminished rapidly. Ieyasu's ascendancy was cemented by the victory of his eastern army over the western army led by Ishida Mitsunari, at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. By 1603, Ieyasu was appointed shogun, founding the Tokugawa shogunate, which would dominate Japan for over 2 centuries. His subsequent assaults on Osaka Castle in 1614 and 15 resulted in the tragic deaths of Yodo Dono, Hideyoshi's concubine, and Hideyori, effectively extinguishing the Toyotomi lineage. The lack of adult heirs, leaving only the young Hideyori as a successor, is widely regarded as a pivotal factor in the Toyotomi dynasty's decline and eventual collapse. The earlier deaths of Hideyoshi's brother, Hidenaga, a crucial supporter of his rise to power, in 1591, and his nephew Hidetsugu, his sole adult heir in 1595 under orders for suspected rebellion, severely destabilized the Toyotomi's regime's foundation. Well, either way, Ieyasu would be the one who takes over the mantle, and as one warlord falls, another rises to take his place. Well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. Isn't it so fascinating, this period of time? And aren't we so lucky that it's so well documented by those primary sources? Tokugawa Ieyasu was the founder and first shogun of the Tokugawa shogunate of Japan. As one of Japan's great unifiers, alongside Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi, he rose from humble beginnings as the son of a minor daimyo, feudal lord, to become a key figure in Japanese history. After serving as a hostage under daimyo Imagawa Yoshimoto, Ieyasu succeeded his father as a proper daimyo and allied with the powerful Oda clan, ultimately consolidating his strength and leadership after the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, it's good to meet you, and if you're coming back, it's a pleasure to have you here again. If you want to support the channel, consider taking a look at my Patreon, where all the videos are ad-free. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you're yet to do so. Without further ado, let's get on to our video for today, a biography of Tokugawa Ieyasu. Tokugawa Ieyasu, originally named Matsudaira Takechiyo, was born in Okazaki Castle on the 26th day of the 12th month of the 11th year of Tenbun, according to the Japanese calendar. One must remember they had a calendar of their own, much like the Chinese. His parents were Matsudaira Hirotada, the daimyo of Mikawa and the Matsudaira clan, and Odai Nokata, the daughter of a neighboring samurai lord, Mizuno Tadumasa. Despite being step-siblings, his parents were 17 and 15 years old, respectively, when Tachichiyo was born. In the year of his birth, the Matsudaira clan faced internal strife. In 1543, Hirotada's uncle, Matsudaira Nobutaka, defected to the Oda clan, emboldening Oda Nobuhide to attack Okazaki. Following this, Hirotada's father-in-law passed away, and his heir, Mizuno Nobumoto, renewed the clan's animosity towards the Matsudaira by aligning themselves with Oda Nobuhide. Consequently, Hirotada divorced Oda Inokata and sent her back to her family. After that, Hirotada entered into new marriages, resulting in Takechiyo gaining 11 half-siblings. Remember, Tokugawa Ieyasu was originally named Matsudaira Takechiyo, so for the times he was going by the name of Takechiyo, we will refer to him as such. Amid Oda Nobuhide's persistent assaults on Okazaki, Hirotada returned to his influential neighbor to the east, Imagawa Yoshimoto, seeking assistance. Yoshimoto agreed to an alliance, under the condition that Hirotada send his young heir to the Senpu domain as a hostage. Oda Nobuhide intercepted this plan and orchestrated the abduction of Takechiyo, who was merely a 5-year-old at this time. Nobuhide issued a dire ultimatum, threatening to execute Takechiyo unless Hirotada severed all ties with the Imagawa clan. Despite Hirotada's steadfast refusal, Nobuhide detained Takechiyo for the subsequent 3 years at Honshoji Temple in Nagoya. Legend has it that Nobunaga crossed paths with Takechiyo at this location when Takechiyo was 6 years old and Nobunaga was 14. In 1549, at the tender age of 6 years old, Takechiyo faced another tumultuous event, the murder of his father Hirotada, orchestrated by his own vassals, who had received bribes, and rather generous ones, from the Oda clan. This tragic event coincided with Oda Nobuhide's demise due to an epidemic, inflicting a severe blow upon the Oda clan. The year 1551 brought further upheaval when an army commanded by Imagawa Sesai besieged the castle where Oda Nobuhiro, Nobuhide's illegitimate eldest son, was residing. Trapped by the Imagawa clan, Nobuhiro's fate shifted when Oda Nobunaga, Nobuhide's second son and heir, intervened through negotiations. Sesai struck a pact with Nobunaga to repatriate Takechiyo to the Imagawa clan, a proposition which Nobunaga agreed to. Consequently, Takechiyo, now 9 years old, became a hostage once again, this time to the Imagawa clan, remaining in Sunpu until 1556, when he reached the age of 14. In 1556, Takechiyo underwent his Genbuku ceremony, signifying his official transition into adulthood under the guidance of Imagawa Yoshimoto. Embracing tradition, he adopted the name Matsudaira Jirosaburo Motonobu. During this time, he briefly returned to Okazaki to pay homage to his father's tomb and receive the allegiance of his nominal retainers, led by the Karo Tori Tadayoshi. At the age of 15, Takechiyo married Lady Tsukiyama, a relative of Imagawa Yoshimoto, assuming the name Matsudaira Kurandanosuke Motoyasu. Within a year, their son, Matsudaira Nobuyasu, was born, after which Takechiyo was permitted to return to Mikawa province. Tasked by the Imagawa clan, he engaged in battles against the Oda clan, commencing with the siege of Terabe in 1558. Despite Suzuki Shigeru's betrayal of the Imagawa to Oda Nobunaga, Motoyasu and his retainers launched an attack, ultimately burning down the main castle and repelling Oda's army's assault on their rear lines. In the following year, he played a crucial role in the siege of Odaka, the lone fortress among 5 disputed frontier forts remaining under Imagawa control. Through diversionary tactics on neighboring forts, he successfully facilitated the delivery of supplies to Odaka, ensuring its resilience against the Oda clan forces. By 1559, Oda Nobunaga had assumed leadership of the Oda clan. In 1560, Imagawa Yoshimoto, commanding a formidable army of 25,000 soldiers, launched an attack into Oda territory. Meanwhile, Motoyasu, that is, Tokugawa's new name, remember, Motoyasu received orders to undertake a distinct mission, to capture the stronghold of Marune. Consequently, he and his troops were absent during the Battle of Okehazama, where Yoshimoto fell victim to Nobunaga's unexpected ambush. With the demise of Yoshimoto and the ensuing chaos within the Imagawa clan, Motoyasu seized the opportunity to assert his autonomy, reclaiming his ancestral seat at the abandoned Okazaki castle. Recognizing the need for strategic alliances, Motoyasu sought to collaborate with Oda Nobunaga, necessitating a clandestine arrangement due to the captivity of his wife, Lady Tsukiyama, and son, Nobuyasu, held hostage by Imagawa Ujizane, Yoshimoto's successor. In 1561, Motoyasu openly defied the Imagawa clan by capturing the fortress of Kaminogo, employing stealth tactics orchestrated by forces under Hattori Hanzo, who infiltrated the castle under the cover of darkness, resulting in its fiery downfall and the capture of Udono Nagamochi's 2 sons as leverage for the release of Motoyasu's family. In 1563, Matsudaira Nobuyasu, Motoyasu's eldest son, entered into matrimony with Oda Nobunaga's daughter, Tokuhime. Meanwhile, Motoyasu underwent a significant transformation, adopting the name Matsudaira Ieyasu in February 1563. Over the ensuing years, Ieyasu dedicated himself to revitalizing the Matsudaira clan and subduing unrest in Mikawa, bolstering his key allies and confronting challenges posed to the Ikoiki movement, that was a peasant uprising led by militant monks of the Jodo Shinshu sect, culminating in battles such as the Battle of Azukizaka in 1564. On January the 15th, 1564, Ieyasu made the pivotal decision to concentrate his forces and launch an assault to eradicate the Ikoiki from Mikawa. Despite facing desertion from some of his own vassals, who sympathized with the rebellion, such as Honda Masanobu and Natsume Yoshinobu. Engaging in the front lines, Ieyasu narrowly escaped death when struck by several bullets that failed to penetrate his armor, highlighting the adoption of gunpowder weapons introduced by the Portuguese 2 decades earlier. Following a fierce battle, the Ikoiki were vanquished and defeated. This solidified Ieyasu's control over Mikawa province by 1565. In 1567, Ieyasu initiated the establishment of the Tokugawa family name, formally adopting the title Tokugawa Ieyasu. Despite hailing from the Matsudaira clan, with claimed descent from the Seiwa Genji branch of the Minamoto clan, the Matsudaira's ancestral link to Emperor Seiwa lacked substantial evidence. Nevertheless, Ieyasu successfully petitioned the imperial court for a name change, securing the courtesy title Mikawa no Kami, the Lord of Mikawa, and the court rank of junior 5th rank lower grade. Now, despite their newfound autonomy, the Tokugawa remained under the influence of Nobunaga, with Ieyasu maintaining allegiance to Nobunaga and contributing Mikawa soldiers to his army during the capture of Kyoto in 1568. Simultaneously, Ieyasu aimed to expand eastward into Totomi province, forging an alliance with Takeda Shingen of the Takeda clan to help seize Imagawa territory. In 1569, Ieyasu's forces advanced into Totomi province, while Takeda Shingen's troops seized Suruga province, including the Imagawa capital of Sunbu. Pursued to Kakegawa Castle, Imagawa Ujizane sought refuge as Ieyasu besieged the stronghold. Negotiating with Ujizane, Ieyasu offered to assist in regaining Suruga if Ujizane would surrender Totomi province. With nothing to lose, Ujizane decided to capitulate, prompting Ieyasu to terminate his alliance with Takeda and instead forge a new pact with Takeda's adversary, Uesugi Kenshin of the Uesugi clan. These strategic maneuvers garnered the support of the samurai in Totomi province. In 1570, Ieyasu designated Hamamatsu as his new territorial capital, entrusting his son, Nobuyasu, with leadership in Okazaki. In mid-1570, Azai Nagamasa, Nobunaga's brother-in-law, betrayed their alliance during the siege of Kanagasaki, prompting Nobunaga to prepare to confront Nagamasa for his disloyalty. Ieyasu, leading 5,000 of his men, joined forces with Nobunaga for the Battle of Anagawa near Lake Biwa in Omi province. Together, they defeated the combined armies of the Azai and Asakura clans, marking the first collaborative victory between the two of them. Following this conflict, Takeda Shingen, in October 1571, terminated the alliance with the Oda Tokugawa coalition and aligned with the Odawara Hojo clan. setting sights on Kyoto at the behest of the shogun Ashikaga Yoshiaki. Initiating his campaign against Ieyasu, Shingen targeted key Tokugawa territories in Totomi, including Nishikawa, Yoshika, and Futamata castles. Despite the initial setbacks, Ieyasu rallied support from Nobunaga, and the two clashed with Shingen's forces at the Battle of Matakigahara in 1573. Outnumbered, Ieyasu suffered a significant defeat, but orchestrated a strategic withdrawal, feigning a dignified reception upon retreat to sow confusion among the Takeda ranks. This ruse thwarted Shingen's attempt to besiege Hamamatsu Castle, ultimately leading to the collapse of the Takeda offensive. Following Shingen's demise in 1573, his son, Takeda Katsuyori, inherited the leadership, but he proved to be less formidable. In subsequent arrangements, including the siege of Nagashino Castle in 1575, Ieyasu enlisted Nobunaga's aid to repel Takeda incursions. Despite sustaining heavy losses, Ieyasu emerged victorious, solidifying control over Suruga province and weakening the Takeda clan's grip on the region. In 1579, accusations of collusion with Takeda Katsuyori led to the execution of Ieyasu's wife, Lady Tsukiyama, and the forced life-taking of his heir, Nobuyasu. Ieyasu then designated his third son, Tokugawa Hideyoshi, as his new successor. Subsequent conflicts culminated in the Second Siege of Takatenjin in 1580–81, followed by the conquest of Kai province in 1582, which culminated in Takeda Katsuyori's defeat and seppuku at the Battle of Tenmokuzan. However, amidst the triumph, news of Nobunaga's demise at the Honjoji incident in June 1582 reached Ieyasu during a tour of the Kansai region. Mobilizing his forces, Ieyasu, with the assistance of his retainer Hattori Hanzo, eluded Akechi Mitsuhide's troops and strategically navigated through hostile territories, eventually returning to Mikawa. His return coincided with Toyotomi Hideyoshi's victory over Matsuhide at the Battle of Yamazaki, marking a pivotal moment in Japan's tumultuous power struggles. Following Oda Nobunaga's death at Honnoji Temple, a Kai province lord's fatal mistake of killing one of Ieyasu's aides prompted Ieyasu to swiftly invade Kai and seize control. In response, Hojo Ujimasa mobilized a larger army into Shinano province, and then Kai province. Eventually a settlement was reached, granting Ieyasu domain over both provinces, while the Hojo clan gained control of Kazusa province alongside portions of Kai and Shinano. In 1583, a struggle for dominance erupted between Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Shibata Katsuie. Yet Ieyasu refrained from taking sides, maintaining his reputation for prudence and sagacity. Hideyoshi's victory at the Battle of Shizukatake propelled him to preeminence in Japan. However, In 1581, Ieyasu risked the Tokugawa clan's survival by backing Oda Nobunaga's eldest living son, against Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Tokugawa forces secure the Oda stronghold of Owari, prompting Hideyoshi to retaliate by sending an army into Owari, marking the commencement of the Komaki and Nagakute campaign, the sole instance where Japan's great unifiers clashed. The campaign culminated in a stalemate, leading to negotiations between Hideyoshi and Ieyasu. Hideyoshi first reconciled with Oda Nobunaga before extending a truce to Ieyasu. Terms were finalized by year-end, including the adoption of Ieyasu's second son, Ogimaru, by Hideyoshi, while Ieyasu's aide, Ishikawa Kazumasa, aligned with Hideyoshi in Osaka. Few other Tokugawa retainers followed suit. Due to understandable distrust, 5 years elapsed before Hideyoshi and Ieyasu fought as allies again. The Tokugawa abstained from Hideyoshi's successful invasion of Shikoku in 1585 and the Kyushu campaign of 1587. In 1590, Hideyoshi launched an assault on the last independent daimyo in Japan, Hojo Ujimasa, whose clan ruled the 8 provinces of the Kanto region. Despite his friendship and occasional alliance with Ujimasa, Ieyasu joined forces with Hideyoshi, contributing his sizable army of 30,000 samurai to Hideyoshi's massive force of approximately 160,000. The Odawara campaign marked the inaugural joint operation of Ieyasu and Hideyoshi. While most of their troops besieged various Hojo castles, the bulk of the army focused on capturing Odawara Castle. After a 6-month siege, with minimal casualties on both sides, Hideyoshi proposed a radical exchange to Ieyasu: the 8 Kanto provinces, in exchange for the 5 provinces under Ieyasu's control, including his home province of Mikawa. Ieyasu agreed to this, and the overwhelmed Hojo clan capitulated. Their leaders took their own lives, enabling Ieyasu to assume control of their provinces easily, thus ending their century-long reign. Furthermore, during the siege of Odawara, the Sanohei faction of the Nanbu clan, led by Nanbu Nobunaga, pledged allegiance to Hideyoshi. In return, Nobunaga was acknowledged as the clan chieftain and confirmed as daimyo of his existing holdings in the northern district of Mutsu province. However, Kunohei Masazane, lord of Kunohei Castle and the leader of the Kunohei faction, contested Nobunaga's claim and began a rebellion. Hideyoshi and Ieyasu perceived the Kunohei rebellion as a challenge to Toyotomi authority, and swiftly organized a retaliatory army to reclaim northern Tohoku and reinstate control under Nanbu Nobunaga's leadership. In 1591, Ieyasu relinquished control of his 5 provinces, Mikawa, Totomi, Suruga, Shinano, and Kai, and relocated all of his soldiers and vassals to his new domain, encompassing the 8 provinces of the Kanto region. He established himself in the castle town of Edo, a move considered one of the riskiest in his career, as it relied on the uncertain loyalty of the former Hojo samurai in Kanto. However, this gamble proved to be highly successful for Ieyasu. He reorganized and pacified the region, gaining the allegiance of the Hojo samurai and enhancing the economic infrastructure. Kanto's relative isolation allowed Ieyasu to forge alliances with daimyos from northeastern Japan, such as Date Masamune and Mogami Yoshiaki, while maintaining a level of autonomy from Hideyoshi's authority. Within a few years, Ieyasu emerged as the second most powerful daimyo in Japan, a feat encapsulated in the Japanese proverb, Ieyasu won the empire by retreating. During the Korean campaign of 1592, led by Hideyoshi as part of his grand strategy to conquer China, the Tokugawa samurai refrained from participation. In 1593, as Hideyoshi's health began to deteriorate, he fathered a son and an heir. Toyotomi Hideyoshi Ieyasu was summoned to Hideyoshi's court in Nagoya as a military advisor and entrusted with commanding reserve troops for the Korean campaign. Despite intermittent absences, Ieyasu's sons, loyal retainers, and vassals effectively managed and developed Edo and the newly acquired Tokugawa territories. However, the staggering costs of the Korean invasions weakened the Toyotomi clan's influence in Japan. In 1598, with Hideyoshi's demise ever more imminent, he convened a meeting to establish the Council of Five Elders, responsible for governing on behalf of his young son Hideyori. The council, comprising of Maeda Toshie, Mori Terremoto, Ukita Hidie, and Uesugi Kakagutsu, and Ieyasu of course, marked a significant shift in the pre-Sekigahara power dynamics. As Hideyoshi passed away in September 1598, Ieyasu began forging alliances with daimyos, opposed to Hideyoshi's rule. Additionally, the death of Maeda Toshie in 1599 further altered the political landscape. Following the deaths of Hideyoshi in 1598 and Maeda Toshie in 1599, Ieyasu sieged Osaka Castle, Hideyori's residence, which incited opposition from the remaining three regents. Tensions escalated, and preparations for conflict were made on all fronts. The focal point of opposition against Ieyasu emerged around Ishida Mitsunari, a prominent daimyo and former top administrator in Hideyoshi's government. Mitsunari plotted Ieyasu's demise, prompting some of Ieyasu's generals to attempt his assassination. Surprisingly, Ieyasu extended protection to Mitsunari, possibly recognizing the strategic advantage of having him lead the enemy forces instead of the regents, who held much greater legitimacy. Japan's daimyo and samurai divided into two factions, the Western army, led by Mitsunari, and the Eastern army, led by Ieyasu. Ieyasu gathered support from allies such as Kiyomasa, Masanori, and Yoshiaki, among others, while Mitsunari aligned with regents and daimyos from western Japan. Tensions escalated further when Uesugi Kakegatsu, one of Hideyoshi's regents, fortified his military at Ieyasu in defiance of Ieyasu's demands. In response to this, Ieyasu mobilized his forces, accusing the Uesugi clan of planning a rebellion. By the July of 1600, Ieyasu had returned to Edo, while his allies moved their armies to confront the Uesugi clan. On September 8th, news arrived that Mitsunari's forces had captured Fushimi Castle and were advancing against Ieyasu. Ieyasu convened with the Eastern Army daimyo, solidifying his commitment to the cause. It was then when the decisive Battle of Sekigahara unfolded on October 20th, 1600, where Ieyasu's Eastern Army clashed with Mitsunari's Western Army. Despite setbacks such as Hidetada's delayed arrival due to a skirmish in Shinano province, Ieyasu emerged victorious. This is indeed a pivotal moment in Japanese history, and I will do a full video on this battle in particular. The Battle of Sekigahara, one of the largest and most significant conflicts in Japanese feudal history. Well, it certainly deserves its own video. Initially, Tokugawa's Eastern Army numbered around 75,000 men, while Mitsunari's Western Army boasted at around 120,000 soldiers. Ieyasu had the strategic advantage of secretly supplying his forces with arquebuses. Now remember, the Portuguese had come a little bit earlier, and this was generally a new technology, but quite a powerful one, if you could get your hands on it. Anticipating the Tokugawa advance towards Osaka, Mitsunari abandoned his position and marched to Sekigahara. Despite the tactical superiority of the Western Army, Ieyasu had already secured alliances with many daimyo within Mitsunari's ranks, offering them land and clemency post-battle. Additionally, Ieyasu had covertly communicated with Toyotomi Hideyoshi's nephew, Hideaki. As 170,000 troops faced off, the battle commenced, culminating in a decisive victory for Tokugawa's forces. Following the triumph, Ieyasu redistributed land among his loyal vassals, sparing some western daimyo such as the Shimazu clan while dismantling others entirely. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the son of Hideyoshi, saw most of his territories under the control of western daimyo lost, relegating him to a mere daimyo status rather than a ruler of Japan. Those who pledged allegiance to Ieyasu before Sekigahara were termed feudal daimyo, while those who did so afterward were considered tozama daimyo and were viewed as inferior daimyo. On March 24th, 1603, now at the age of 60 years old, Tokugawa Ieyasu was bestowed with the prestigious title of shogun by Emperor Go-Yozei. By achieving this honor, Ieyasu surpassed his contemporaries, including Nobunaga, Shingen, Hideyoshi, and Kenshin. As shogun, he decided his remaining years to be establishing and strengthening the Tokugawa shogunate, which marked the beginning of the Edo period and became the third shogunal government in Japanese history, following the Kamakura and Ashikaga periods. Claiming descent from the Minamoto clan, who founded the Kamakura shogunate through the Nita clan, Ieyasu's descendants would later form alliances with the Taira clan and the Fujiwara clan. The Tokugawa shogunate would go on to govern Japan for the ensuing 260 years. Following a tradition deeply ingrained in Japanese culture, Ieyasu voluntarily relinquished his position as shogun in 1605. His successor was his son, Tokugawa Hidetada. Multiple factors may have influenced Ieyasu's decision, including a desire to avoid ceremonial obligations, to obscure the true locus of power from potential adversaries, and to ensure a smooth transition of authority to his successor. Despite his abdication, Ieyasu retained practical control over the government and continued to wield significant influence. Nevertheless, Hidetada assumed the formal role as the head of the shogunal bureaucracy. From 1605 onward, as the retired shogun, Ieyasu continued to work behind the scenes. While residing in Sunpu Castle, Ieyasu oversaw the monumental construction of Edo Castle, a project that consumed the remainder of his life. The result was the largest castle in Japan, with costs borne by other daimyo, while Ieyasu simply reaped the benefits. Although the central donjon, or Tenshu, was destroyed in the Meireki fire of 1657, today the site is occupied by the Imperial Palace. In 1611, Ieyasu led a procession of 50,000 men to Kyoto to attend the enthronement of Emperor Go-Mizuno. During his stay in Kyoto, Ieyasu initiated renovations to the imperial court and compelled remaining Western daimyo to pledge allegiance to him. I imagine at this point that it probably wouldn't have been a hard sell. In 1613, he formulated the Kuge Shohato, that's the rules for court nobles, placing court daimyo under strict supervision and reducing their authority to mere ceremonial roles. Subsequently, in 1615, Ieyasu established the laws for the military houses, delineating the governance structure of the Tokugawa regime. In his capacity as Ogosho, that's the retired shogun, Ieyasu managed diplomatic relations with European powers, such as the Netherlands, Spain, and England. From 1609 onwards, he began distancing Japan from European influence, although the Dutch East India Company retained trading privileges and a trading post under his regime. Throughout this period, Ieyasu frequently sought counsel from William Adams, an English shipwright and pilot fluent in Japanese. Adams played a key role in negotiating trade agreements, but his presence was contested by rival Catholic factions, including Jesuits and Spanish missionaries, who viewed him as an impediment to Catholic influence in Japan. And if you're wondering how the Catholics were treated in Japan, well, I recently made a video about that too. Efforts to restrict the influence of Christian missionaries intensified during Ieyasu's rule. In 1614, he issued a Christian expulsion edict, banning the practice of Christianity and expelling foreign missionaries, citing concerns about Spanish territorial ambitions and the potential for invasion. This edict marked the end of open Christian activities in Japan until around the late 19th century, prompted in part by the Okamoto Daihachi incident, a case of fraud involving a Catholic vassal of Ieyasu. It didn't help that the Catholics were organizing militias as well. That didn't look very good. The last significant challenge to Ieyasu's authority came from Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the son and heir of Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi, residing in Osaka Castle, which is beautiful by the way, you should go there, became a focal point for samurai opposed to Ieyasu's rule, rallying around the belief that Hideyoshi was the legitimate ruler of Japan. In 1614, tensions escalated when Ieyasu took issue with the opening ceremony of a temple that was sponsored by Hideyoshi, interpreting it as a veiled wish for his demise and the downfall of the Tokugawa clan. He then demanded Hideyoshi to vacate the Osaka castle, but the occupants resisted and called upon samurai to their defense. Consequently, Tokugawa's forces, led by Ieyasu himself and his son Hidetada, initiated a siege of Osaka Castle, known as the Winter Siege of Osaka. Despite initial resistance, negotiations ensued, and an armistice was reached after threats against Hideyori's mother. Not cool. Forced concessions from defenders. Yeah, I don't know, you don't go after a guy's mum. That is just bad form, isn't it? Sorry to break character, but that is bad form. However, upon the conclusion of the treaty, Tokugawa forces filled the castle's outer moats with sand, enabling them to gain land through deception that they could not seize through combat. In the following year, Ieyasu launched another assault on Osaka Castle, known as the Summer Siege of Osaka, to eliminate Hideyori's remaining stronghold. The siege culminated in 1615 with the fall of Osaka Castle and the demise of nearly all of its defenders, including Hideyori, Yorodono, his mother, and their infant son. Despite pleas for mercy from Hideyori's wife, Senhime, who was also Ieyasu's granddaughter, Ieyasu refused to spare their lives. With the Toyotomi line extinguished, Ieyasu solidified the Tokugawa clan's dominance over Japan, and every single last remaining threat to his rule was simply gone. Well, I think with that we can end the story of Ieyasu Tokugawa. Bit of a longer one, of course, but a rather interesting character. I'd like to thank you again for joining me, and I'd like to thank my Mega Chat patron Stark Factory for his glorious contribution on the Patreon. Thank you, Stark Factory. I know you're listening. If you'd like to become a mega Chad like Stark Factory, then how about you visit the Patreon and take a look? It's a pretty good deal. Or, if you're not inclined to do so, just keep enjoying the content. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.